In this video, we're going to be talking about 5 ways that you can gamify ordinary worksheets. You know, the worksheets that look like this. Or maybe the worksheets that are a little bit more complex or more complicated. I know for me personally, when I was in the classroom, a lot of times there were particular worksheets that I had. The questions were worded just right. They had the right amount of rigor to them, but they were boring. Or sometimes I would have an assignment or I would have something in mind that I wanted to do for class. Or maybe I had something engaging planned out for my class, but it kind of took a turn and it went in a direction that I didn't like. And so I liked to have these games on hand just in case I needed a reset in the classroom, something to change the overall mood of the classroom and get students a little bit more engaged and interested in what we were doing, even if the thing that we were doing in and of itself was not very interesting. So I'm going to be sharing with you these 5 games, and along the way, I'm going to be telling you how you can implement these. So I have created a document for you guys. I'm going to share my screen with you guys and just kind of show you what this looks like. It has the 4 games with all of the instructions that you need in order to implement these games. And so if along the way, if you're listening to this video and you're like, wait, I still have questions, I'm giving you a brief overview of a lot of these games inside of this video, but I know that at the time that you're watching this video, you're probably not in the classroom, and so you're not going to remember 100% of what I said anyway, and so I have put all of this in this handy dandy workbook for you that you can grab for free. Down below, there's a link, and you can grab all of these games that you see here. So this is Dicey. This is one of the games that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to be telling you ways that even though you've got this workbook and you have this handy, I'm going to be sharing some ways with you that you can implement these things without the workbook. So even if you don't have the workbook or you don't have the pages printed up, you can still play the games on the fly, because honestly, I played every single one of these games in my classroom, and I didn't make this workbook to share with people until after I had left the classroom. So we're going to be talking about how you can play this without that. In case you find yourself in a spot where you don't have things printed out, you can just play these on the go. So the very first game that we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to kind of show you some of these as we go, is this game called Dicey. So you can kind of see it right here. It has 3 dice, and you roll each one of the dice individually first. So the first dice that you roll tells you how many problems that the students are going to be working. The second dice tells you how much time it's going to be the students are going to have. And the third dice tells you the challenge that the students are going to face as they're working through these problems. So this is really fun because every round is different for the students, and they really enjoy that because they're not doing the same thing over and over again. So one round, they may have an extra long amount of time to do 1 or 2 problems, and then the next round, they have a very short period of time to do several problems. And so it kind of changes things up, but also the game changes. So they have different challenges here. And so I'm just going to go over a couple of these challenges with you. One of the ones that I really like is hand and mouth. And many of these challenges were designed to actually not just create something that was fun, but actually serve a real true purpose when it comes to learning. So with hand and mouth, if they roll this challenge, then each team is going to select a member of their team to be the mouth. So students are split up into teams, and they are working together as a team to compete against other people. So every time that they complete a question with these challenges and they get a question correct as a team, then they get 2 points. And so they're trying to get as many answers correct as a team as they can so they can earn the most points throughout the course of the game. So with this hand and mouth, one member of the team is the mouth, meaning they're the only person who can actually give directions. And then the rest of the team members are the hands. So they are the people who are doing the actual calculating, but the hands in the team can only do what the mouth has told them to do. So they can only type numbers into the calculator, if they have a calculator, that the mouth has told them to type in. They can only write things down, circle pieces of information, or perform operations or set up equations based on what the mouth has told them to do. And so this does a couple of things. Number one, it provides a really great teacher opportunity for the mouth, right? The mouth is really having to think about and process the problem out loud and teach it. And we know as teachers that deeper understanding really comes when a student can communicate or has to communicate what they know inside of their head to somebody else. And then the other thing is that the people who are the hands, they actually have to listen. And they're thinking very critically about this too, right? Because they want to win. And what I found is as soon as that timer goes off, the best conversations happen inside of the classroom. Because what now has taken place is you have hands who haven't been able to talk for the entire round, and they've been completing all of this stuff on their own. And they're very upset with the mouth sometimes because they're like, that's not how you're supposed to do it. And they kind of bicker and go back and forth. And it's the best form of argument inside of the math classroom that you can have, where people are discussing whether or not a problem has been correctly worked. And we had some of the best conversations in the classroom when we did this hand and mouth. So that's one of my favorite ones. And then another one on here that I really love is eavesdropper. So if they roll this eavesdropper challenge, then each team member sends out a member of their team to go and eavesdrop on other teams. So they stay, like, let's say there's 4 people in a group. One person goes out to go and eavesdrop and to hear how other teams are solving these problems, and they come back and report what they've learned. And so this one becomes really fun because a lot of times inside of a team, they'll try to throw people off. You know, if they have an eavesdropper at their table, they'll try to throw people off. And then they get a few seconds to come back and report and adjust their answers. So you can have an eavesdropper go back and report something that's completely wrong, right? And so then their team members have to correct them and go, no, that's not right. Like they're doing it wrong. They're just trying to mess with you. And that also creates these really wonderful conversations that you can have. And so I really love Dicey. Now, I get it. These little guys, if you're going to print these, I print them on cardstock. And even though it's a little harder to fold, they will last a little bit longer. But even if you don't want to do that, you can have this printout of the challenge descriptions for Dicey. You can have this printout just kept at your desk, and you can just get a regular set of die. So you can see every single one of these are 6-sided, just like a regular die. And so because of that, you can use a regular die and you can roll it 3 times. And so the first time you roll it, just make up a number. One roll is 1 problem, right? If we roll a 2, it's 2 problems. And then same for the time. If we roll a 1, that's 1 minute. If we roll a 2, that's 2 minutes, so on and so forth. And then you can just assign a number to each one of these challenges. And then that way you don't have to keep up with these little die and try to make sure that they don't get crushed, because that's what happened in my house with my toddler. And we all know that teaching middle school is somewhat similar to having a whole bunch of toddlers. And this happens quite often. But I really love this game because of just how different it is, and it's a really fun one to pull out. The next challenge is kind of a classic one. It's tic-tac-toe. So with this, you get a little tic-tac-toe sheet. You can see it right back here in the background of this video. And you take your worksheet and you circle the problems that are going to go on the tic-tac-toe board. And you can let students put these problems in any order on the board that you want to, or you can put it on there yourself and have them work in that order. But you just put the problem numbers, and so students will still work on their own sheet of paper, so you don't have to worry about them running out of space or room to write. But then if they want to claim a space, then that's the problem they have to work. And you'll see them kind of like internally. This is really great for when you have students who avoid rigorous problems, because they really want to claim that space. They really want to claim that spot. And if they want to do that, they want to get 3 in a row, then a lot of times they're going to have to work that rigorous problem. Or if they want to block their partner, they're going to have to work that rigorous problem. Now, another thing that I love about this is, again, you do not have to do any prep work. Tic-tac-toe, that's just a couple of lines on a sheet of paper. Students could literally do this on the same worksheet that you've given to them, and you don't have to have anything special printed out. However, it is really nice to just have a stack of plain tic-tac-toe sheets or plain sheets ready to go for some of these games. That way, students don't have to do that, and you can just give them that separate, and you don't have to worry about them running out of workspace on their individual worksheet. But this one's a really fun one. I know a lot of teachers have done this one. It's a classic, but it's still a really good one. Okay, this next one I also really love. This is Build a Zombie. It's played very similar to the classic Hangman. And this is actually one that is going into my partner pack activities. I'm trying to pull this up for you guys so you can kind of see it here. So the way that this works is you still pick the problems that students have to work, but this is one that you can play as a whole class, or they can play it as partners. So you pick a phrase that you would like for them to guess. So for example, in this video, I've picked I love math, right? And as students get a question correct, they get to pick a letter that they think might be inside of the phrase. And so if they pick the letter correctly, then you write it down, we cross it off the alphabet list. If they pick a letter that is not a part of the phrase, then you draw in a body part on that zombie. And the goal of this is for the students to be able to correctly guess the phrase before the zombie is drawn. So if the zombie gets drawn before the phrase is guessed, then the students lose, right? If they guess the phrase before the zombie is complete, then they win the game. And you can play this one over and over and over again. We played games like this all the time, and students love it. And this is as simple as you could even project that zombie onto the board and draw it out. You could draw your own zombie, which is probably what I would do if I didn't have one of these out. I would just draw a little head, put little X's for the eyes, put the little straight mouth, and draw a little stick man. That's honestly probably what I would do, and they're gonna love it just as much. I just like these little worksheets and to go ahead and have them on hand, because then I don't have to write the alphabet out every single time. I can just project this, or students can grab one and they can play it on their own in addition to any worksheet. And honestly, that's really, really fun to do, because if a student, for example, wants to work with a partner, but other members in the class maybe want to work independently and put their headphones in, and this is a really great way to give students choice, because they can just walk over. If you have stacks of these that are already available and already printed, they can go grab this game or tic-tac-toe or something like that, and they can gamify their own worksheets. And so that's always a lot of fun too. All right, so this next one I really love. It's one of my most popular games of all time. It's Sabotage, and these guys are super fun. So the basic premise of this game is students are split up into teams, and once they're split up into teams, they're given a set amount of time that you determine and a set number of problems. So this is really based on the rigor and how much time you think they're going to need, how many problems you think they can actually accomplish, and basically how well you know your students, right? And then each team at the end of the round, they count up the total number of problems that they got correct. And the team with the most points or with the most problems correct, they win that round. And as their prize, they get to pick a sabotage to give to their competition. So basically they can pick a sabotage. Like this one is must hold paper above head while working. And there are several other sabotages in here as well, like must stand on tiptoes while working. There's some must stick your tongue out for the entire round. Basically things that would be a distraction to their opposing teams and probably slow them down. And this is just really, really fun because they get such a kick out of it, and you can't think of a better free prize than allowing them to sabotage their friends a little bit inside of the competition. And so this makes for a really fun game, and every single one of these is different. There are also some blank cards in here so that you can fill out and create your own sabotages as you work through and play through the game. And this is an easy one to have on hand. I usually just kept a jar by my desk, Or I didn't create these until after I left the classroom. And so before, when I was in the classroom, all I would do is I would just take a blank sheet of paper, rip them up, and write little sabotages down. And students would go nuts. If they saw me sitting there ripping paper when they were working on their bell ringer, they got so excited. They're like, are we going to play the game? Are we going to play the game? And I'm like, yes, we are. And they're, all right, let's go, and they would get so excited for what we were going to be doing that day in the lesson. They didn't care what kind of math we were doing or anything like that. All they wanted to know was whether or not they were going to get to sabotage people. And so this becomes a really fun one. Now, a couple of questions that I get asked a lot is, number one, like, what do you do when multiple teams get the same number of points? Well, I do a couple of things. If I'm giving them only a few problems, like say 3 or 4 problems, then obviously the likelihood of people tying is going to be pretty high. So in that case, what I'll do is I'll actually change the way that I score. So I might say, okay, nobody on your team can talk to each other. You're working this number of problems, and we count by how many people inside of the group got the problem right. So they get 1 point per person per problem in their team. So if they have a team of 4 and one person in their team got 3 questions right, another person got 2, and then the other 2 got 1, then we've got 7 points. I hope I counted that right. And then the next team, maybe somebody got 3, and then the rest of the 3 people in the team got 2 points. Okay, so then you would have 9 points. And so you could count it like that. And so you can kind of change up the way that you're scoring versus scoring the team as a whole. And that becomes really fun because at the end of each round, they can have a discussion before they go into the next round and say, okay, several of your team members were not getting this problem right. You have 2 minutes to talk to your teammates and teach them something that might help them in the next round. And so that is one way to do it. Another way to do it is if you're just finding that you're having 2 teams tie, then you can do rock, paper, scissors. It's that simple. Now, some people are like, well, then it's only fun for the top scorers. What happens then if I've realized, because I usually counted off randomly, and I would go, okay, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the 1s are together, all the 2s are together, all the 3s are together. If I ended up with a couple of groups that were really strong and the other teams just didn't stand a chance, then I would say, all right, all the 1s get up and move 1 spot, right, to the right. All the 2s get up and move 1 spot to the left. And I would kind of shake up the teams a little bit just so other teams started to have a little bit more of a chance. I'd give them a couple of minutes to get reacquainted, to talk, to come up with a game plan with their new teammates, and then we would move forward. So this shook everything up a little bit and made sure that other teams were able to compete and to play and to enjoy the game, because at the end of the day, they're just waiting to pick a sabotage. It's really what they want. Another question that I got asked a lot were about physical limitations. So when I created these, I tried to make sure that most of these were pretty inclusive. However, really and truly, this comes down to knowing your class and knowing your students really well. So this was not a game that I would recommend playing the first week of school before you really know your students and before they really know each other, because some kids might feel really, really awkward or shy, and it might actually be detrimental to them the first week of school to have to sit there and hold their tongue out the entire round of a problem, especially in middle school, because we know how middle school can be. So this is a game that I played a little bit further into the year when I knew my students really well and I knew what students were capable of handling what, and it was a really fun game. But I would have to switch it up sometimes, even switch up cards, pull some cards out between classes and replace them with new cards. So for example, as we got into the year, I knew that there was a student who physically, it was very uncomfortable for them to stand on 1 foot. And so I would just pull that card out whenever that class period came along, because I didn't want anything that was going to be uncomfortable for students. And obviously I wanted them to have fun and to have a good time. And overall, that's what happened. They all had a good time. They laughed, they joked, and it was really, really fun. And you would think that this might actually, some people have been like, wouldn't that be divisive? It's really not. They have the best time and they talk about it for days. All right, the last game that I'm going to talk about is actually not something that is inside of your handout because you don't need any paper, you don't need any printouts. This is something you can pull up at the very last minute, and that is musical chairs. So musical chairs was always a favorite because it was such a mood booster and it changed the entire atmosphere inside of the classroom whenever I would pull this out. And I usually found myself pulling this out at the end of the day when students were kind of lethargic, they're starting to get tired, they're starting to get that look in their eye, and you can tell they just need to move. That's when I would pull out musical chairs. So with musical chairs, all I did was I'd pull up a song that I knew the students loved, and you can't be OCD for this. You're just gonna have to throw that out the window. So if you're major type A, a little OCD, and you're like, your desk is all straight, you're gonna have to throw that out the window to play this game. And so real quick on the turn of a dime, I'd say, all right, everybody, I need 11 desks together, or I need 14 desks together, or 22 desks, however many students you have in your class, one less than that, right? So push all of them together. Sometimes we would do 2 lines, even if that was necessary, and they would do like a figure 8 between the two. It was crazy. So sometimes you can't fit a whole circle, but it works. And so we would put everything together, and then I would pull 2 desks off to the side. And so those 2 desks would be for the student who didn't get a chair in musical chairs and for me. So at the end of each round of musical chairs, we didn't pull out a new desk. We just continued to play with 1 fewer desk or 1 less desk than we had students. And the student who didn't get a desk that round, they moved over to that pair of desks and they worked with me for that round. And so this is great for multiple reasons. The first is that they absolutely loved being able to get up and walk around, change the entire energy in the room. And the second is they liked the fact that sometimes they could sit across from the person that they would want to sit across from. So you would watch them, you would eye them, and they're planning it. They're like, okay, you move 1 chair, I move 1 chair, we kind of stay together, right? So that they could stay together and partner with someone that they wanted to sit with. And so that always excited them. And the third thing, and probably the most important thing, was that it gave me an opportunity to sit one-on-one with a child without them feeling singled out. And what I found when I was doing this is almost every single time we played this game, I would have 2 or 3 students who I would watch them. They would purposefully not get a seat so that they could sit with me, because they felt a little awkward or a little intimidated about singling themselves out to ask a question, or singling themselves out, raising their hand saying, hey, can I get some extra help? But because it was a game, they felt very comfortable just being like, oh, I missed a chair, now I gotta go sit with Miss Fulton. And so they would come and sit with me, and they would get a few minutes to work one-on-one. The last thing is, the reason why I also loved this was because if ever conversations started to get out of hand, or I could sense that we needed a little bit of a reset, maybe they were kind of getting a little too chatty in between the game, all I had to do was start the music over again and reset it, and then next thing you know, they're sitting next to new people and things look a little bit different for them. And so this was really, really great to make sure that they were staying on task, especially during the end of the day, like I said before, when they're a little bit over it. It was really, really great to pull out for those, and it required no prep for me. And one of the simple ways that you can make this an even better experience for students is to have them pick the song that you're going to play musical chairs to, because then it's playing a song that they really love and they really enjoy, and that always boosts the mood a little bit too. I really hope that you found these really helpful. Again, download these worksheets so you can make sure that you have these on hand. And if you're a VIP ticket holder, there are actually some of these courses that you're going to get. So there are some partner pack activities. It has tic-tac-toe, it has hangman activity, and it has another partner activity in it as well. And so you'll be getting one of those, one for 7, one for 8, and one for Algebra 1 that you can implement and share with your kids inside of your classroom. And if you try any of these games next year, make sure you tag me on social media at Lauren Fulton Math, because I would love to share what you're doing inside of your classroom. I hope you're enjoying your time at Summer Math Summit. If you want to see some more great ideas on how to get some movement into your classroom, make sure you check out Jenny's session from 8th grade math teacher, because hers is all about getting more movement inside of the classroom, and I think you'll really enjoy that one too. All right, I'll see you soon.